All right, that looks like it should be good. Let me go
All
ahead
right.
and test the audio real quick, and sounds good to me. Go ahead and speak, please.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hey guys.
All right. Awesome,
Can you
no
hear me?
echo. Beautiful, beautiful,
Okay.
beautiful. All right. All right, welcome back, Mark Biernacki. Thank you very much for joining us today. And go ahead and tell us some about yourself. Um, you can go ahead and repeat pretty much anything that happened last time.
Okay. Yeah. So I started playing chess when I was around 7 years old, and I learned the game from my dad and my older brother. Um, and when I started playing, I joined like the school chess club. In fact, I think it was the first year of having a chess club at my elementary school. And I basically just joined because my brother was doing it as well, and he was placed in the advanced group. So I pretended like I also could be in the advanced group in the chess club for like the first couple of days of chess club. But eventually I sort of got like figured out and I was put back down into the intermediate group because I didn't really know what I was doing. Um, and so that was the initial motivation to get better at chess. And I think like I don't know the exact amount of time, but probably only like a month later, I was beating everybody in the intermediate group, coming from basically knowing just how the pieces move. Like that was a big motivation for 7-year-old Mark to get better.
All right, excellent. And how old was your brother
Yeah.
at the time? How much older than
So I
you?
guess he's 4 years older. So he was 11 and I was 7. Or yeah, he might have been 10 or something. But
And so you just caught it really quick. Nice.
yeah. Well, I mean, he was still better than me at that time for sure. But I was good enough to be in the same like tier.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so my brother played chess as well. So growing up with an older brother that plays chess is pretty helpful. I think in like a lot of chess families, like the younger sibling ends up surpassing the older sibling at some point because basically they just have been playing for longer, or they played for more of their lives growing up, and so that's sort of what happened to me as well. My brother sort of stopped playing, and I kept with it.
Right. And
Um,
was he a
and but
role model to you?
I'm sorry.
He was a role model to you too?
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. Um, Additionally, in this chess club was my first chess coach, who I took a few lessons from privately, which was Mike Klein.
Oh, sweet.
And yeah, so he was younger at the time. He hadn't started with like chess.com or chesskid.com or anything like that. And he was just teaching chess in Charlotte, I think. And so looking back, very lucky to have a good coach at such a young age. Another interesting thing about me is that started out with a very low chess rating, and it took me a long time to improve. I wasn't like I started out at even like 1300, 1200, 1100. I started out at 200, and so most players I would say start out at least like 800 or 700, something like pretty high. I basically started from the very bottom of the rating list, and gradually improved.
Gotcha. And where did you do most of your playing? Was it over the board, online, reading books?
Oh yeah, over the board. That's another interesting thing is that I didn't really get into online chess until I was in college. So I think a lot of people probably played a lot more online games than I did when I was in like high school, middle school, elementary school. I'm not sure online chess was even that big, in like early 2000s. But I never really played online until around 2015, 2016, which is a bit late to sort of join the party, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Besides playing chess, obviously you have more to your life. What else did you do besides chess?
So I've always really played a lot of sports. Growing up, I played like all of the major American sports, like at some point in time: soccer, baseball, football, basketball. But the ones I stuck with the most are football and basketball. I played football in high school. And I still play basketball pretty frequently today. I'm not too great at basketball, but it's my favorite sport to play. I never played like super competitively, but I enjoy doing it for fun.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think that's something also I value is having balance. Like a lot of chess players, maybe don't do things like outside of chess as much as they should.
Hmm.
And I definitely think it's important to not just be, one-sided, only have one focus. It's important to do other things as well.
Yeah, just have a
Um,
balance. That makes sense.
yep, yep, yeah. I definitely have always valued that.
All right.
Um, yeah.
All right, cool. Well, go ahead and set the scene for us. What is it you will be talking about today?
So I'm gonna be talking about a game that I played at the U.S. Open, almost exactly a year ago.
Hmm?
It was like August, early August of 2019.
Yep.
It was round 3 of the tournament, and I had won the first 2 games.
Hmm?
So this is sort of a common trend with the U.S. Open, is that you play like much lower rated opponents for a little bit, and then really strong player, and then low rated opponents for a little bit, and then a really strong player. Or at least for my rating range, you get a big range of opponents because it's just one big section. I don't know
Right.
if you know that.
The big open section.
But so I knew that this was sort of going to happen at some point where I'd play like one of the top seeds. And I think it was actually board 1. I could be wrong. I think it was board 1. I think he was the one seed in the 9-day schedule. I'm pretty sure it was board 1,
You guys
but
were
I
on
could be
a
wrong.
DGT board and being broadcast everywhere, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because my 2 roommates for the tournament were actually on boards 2 and 3 also.
Hmm. Nice.
So yeah, all 3 of us were playing. Like we were all very close in rating, and the 2 roommates were on boards 2 and 3, also playing GMs in this round.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just a kind of a fun fact about this round.
Do you guys get in a lot of preparation between rounds with each other?
Yeah, definitely. So this is the U.S. Open 9-day schedule, so it's one game a day, and you usually get the pairings at least a couple hours before the round. So we would have plenty of time to prepare, and I definitely prepared for this game a lot, although I think I didn't get my preparation.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean sometimes that happens, especially when you're playing an extremely strong player. They can pretty much play anything. So sometimes preparing like can be sort of useless. It's actually like it's a lot easier, right, to prepare for somebody who's maybe a couple hundred points lower rated than you,
Mm-hmm.
even though you're like less motivated to do so. It's easier to prepare and maybe find a hole in their repertoire. I mean, obviously he has no holes in his repertoire, so it's GM Kamil Dragoon,
Hmm.
and he was the Polish national champion, and I think probably the highest rated player I've ever played.
Especially when you're playing against someone with a lasting dragoon. Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm very excited to see what we're going to learn from this game, and definitely let us know at what point in the game where you believe that it started tipping in the favor of either you or your opponent, and your thought process at that moment.
Okay.
All right. So we'll go ahead and start here. So C4, as we had in the other interview, that's this is your main repertoire as white, correct?
Yep. I'm mainly an English player, and I, just wanted sort of to see what he would do here.
Okay. Standard moves out of the opening. All right, both sides are castled, and opponent plays A6 here. So A6, what's the ideas, and what is your preparation from here?
So A6, the idea is just to be able to drop the bishop back to A7.
Okay.
So eventually, like, I'm gonna play A3, E3, B4, and D4, and sort of just push the bishop back to A7. So it's like a prophylactic move against sort of that idea.
Okay. So he's gonna just hide himself in there and just wait.
Right.
All right, cool. So you're playing. You did A3, D6, and then E3. So pretty much exactly what you just said.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah, and
preemptively.
this is yeah, pretty common move so far. You know, for against this variation, this is I'm sure this position's been played like many times.
Probably.
Or at least in a couple moves.
Oh yeah, plenty right
Yeah.
here in the database.
Yeah, yeah. Like the move order might be a little bit strange.
Hmm.
The move specific, like him playing Bishop A7, like before he actually has to. That's probably not the most common.
Okay.
But like basically this general position has been played a lot of times. Yeah.
All right, and this is still in your preparation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So B4, then knight E7. I'll just kind of keep going through the moves here and go ahead and stop me when feel like it's an important point.
Okay.
We have D4. All right, breaking the center, and knight
Right
D6.
here is an important moment.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, I play D takes E5. Essentially just going for an endgame. But an endgame where I feel like I probably am objectively like maybe slightly better.
Okay.
So it's not just like trading queens because I'm playing a strong player. It's like also a decent just like strategic decision to trade queens here,
regardless of the opponent.
But I think that being said, I wouldn't do it if I were playing somebody lower rated than me.
Interesting.
I would probably play D takes E5, D takes E5, and then Queen C2 or something. But yeah. Okay, so I didn't play Queen takes D right away. My
Okay.
apologies.
You
I'll
just
play
kind
that
of
next
left
move.
it. You're waiting for maybe a rook captures to get active.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense. All right, C6, and now you decide.
Then I did it. Yeah.
Cool. Oof. All right, that bishop
Now
looks kind of.
C5. Yeah, just blocking in the bishop. And so this is what I said. I felt like maybe this was a good position for me.
Hmm.
I definitely can't be worse in this position.
Okay, and what's the plan moving forward from here for both sides?
Yeah, I mean it is pretty equal. So unlike the last game we looked at, there aren't as many imbalances. You know, the pawn structure is symmetrical.
Hmm.
I would say right here, I'm not necessarily coming up with a long-term plan, but in just a couple moves, I am. I'm still probably in just the mindset of like just make moves, improve your pieces.
Okay.
But in just a couple moves, it's sort of like the long-term thinking comes into play.
Okay.
Like C5 probably is just like a pretty natural move to make just to lock in the bishop. And then I think I play rook D1 next. That's also just a natural move to, you know, try to control the D file.
Right.
So he plays bishop B3, which is a strong move.
Right. Pretty much saying you're not going to keep your rook on this file for long.
Yeah. So that's what my opponent was trying to do, and I have to put my rook on this awkward square of D2.
Hmm.
And it's impossible to double up rooks with rook AD1, which is pretty annoying. So it feels a little bit like the pressure's on me in this position now.
Okay.
Not that I'm worse, but I'm the one who has to play like pretty good moves here for the next few moves to not end up worse.
Gotcha. And I'm curious. Before your opponent played bishop to B3, when he played bishop to E6 here, did you already kind of anticipate him coming in?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's most useful probably to show the idea like after rook D2. So I saw the bishop coming in, but I had like a plan for it.
Oh, okay.
So I played bishop F1, which is moving the bishop to a better diagonal. On G2 to C6, it's not really doing anything.
Okay.
My opponent plays rook E8, and then right here, this is a good moment for viewers to think about what's your worst placed piece as white. And the answer is the knight on F3. Because this knight, if you look, it can't go to D4. It can't go to E5,
right.
G5, H4. Basically, no good squares for the knight. And there's really only one route for this knight to get back into the game. Another good question to ask yourself in the game is like, if I could drop that knight anywhere on the board, where would it be? Or at least I like to think like this sometimes. And the answer is, okay, c7, because that would fork the rooks, but we're not going to go to c7. Another answer could be like d6.
Yeah, I'm looking at d6 or b6, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so d6, maybe like b6, if the bishop isn't on a7, then b6 would be a good square for the knight. And once you sort of realize those two things, like this knight would ideally want to be on b6 or d6, and it can't go anywhere right now, you also have this problem with the rook on d2, with the rook being awkward. And then you can sort of come up with the move I played, which is rook e2. Which looks extremely strange, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of like getting yourself ready to get hit and stuff, but being on a
yeah. So bishop c4 isn't really a worry, because I would just probably move the rook back to e1, and fine with the trade of the bishops. The reason it sort of looks strange is that you're leaving control of the open D file, which is something that you're taught not to do from the beginning of chess. You're supposed to control open files.
Right.
But the reason I played it is to get the knight into the game, which is knight d2. Coming up, you can just make black's move. Yeah, knight d2. And then this is also pretty cool. Rook e1.
Wow.
Allowing the bishop to control the c4 square. And now my knight's going to get into the game.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so just one awkward move to help relieve or to open up all your pieces.
Yeah.
And you had plenty of time here because there's really no pressure that black has on you.
Yeah, and I like showing this. If you go back just like to where my rook was on d1 and when it was attacked by the bishop.
Yep.
So it actually went in like almost a full square, right? It went to d2, e2, and then e1.
Yeah.
And like all of those moves also were just the best moves to make in the position.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know. That's like a pattern that I don't know if I've ever seen before.
Well, you see triangulation with the king, so might as well have a squarelation with the... No, I'm just coming up with random words here. All right, so continue on with the bishop c7.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I played a little bit of a mistake here, which is rook a d1.
Okay.
It actually made sense to move my e rook to d1, just because my rook on e1 isn't really doing anything. Yeah, and it would have completed the square, by the way. Yeah, that would have been the best part of playing that move. I'm not really sure what was going through my head, honestly, when I played rook a d1. Rook a d1 is just a bad. Like, I should have just moved the e rook. It makes more sense. Having the two rooks together on e1 and d1 doesn't really make any sense, just because the e1 rook is doing nothing, whereas the a1 rook, has more options.
Okay. Yeah, and when you bring your rook over from a to d1, you're actually kind of trapping him in a little bit.
Yeah, I have no idea why I played that.
Okay. Sorry, I was going to ask, when you play against stronger players, do you find yourself making what you feel is an awkward maneuver, but it turns out to be the correct way to play?
So like the maneuver I just did?
Correct. Yeah. Were you doing all this stuff with the knight and everything?
Actually, I thought that, like, during the game, I thought that was like really, really almost like I knew it was like really smart and really a good maneuver. And my opponent, we analyzed the game afterwards, and he was like, I couldn't believe that maneuver was working. He was like shocked that it worked. So I knew at the time that it was like a really good way to play. And so yeah, I would say normally I don't come up with those kinds of things. That was an abnormal pattern for sure.
Well, definitely, I learned that you could definitely, against a stronger player, even make an awkward maneuver, but it works out. So
yeah.
Right.
You just play the board, not your opponent. So Maybe later on in the game, I get a little bit intimidated, but so far I've played pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still feels very comfortable here for white.
Mhm.
So a5, looking to start getting activity on the a file.
Yep.
Like, okay, you ignored it.
E4 is a little bit inaccurate.
Okay.
So I think that's a move that I wouldn't have played maybe against a weaker player. And so it's important whenever you're playing a stronger player to make sure that you're playing confidently and playing the same way you would, if you were playing against a lower rated player, against the stronger player.
Okay.
And E4 is sort of a defensive move. It's like preventing the knight from coming to D5, preventing the bishop from coming to D5. It's not an aggressive move. So I think the best move in the position was to go B5 instead of E4.
Oh wow, b5. Okay.
Uh-huh. And so let's say
Obviously, if they
take,
capture,
yeah.
you got a really strong knight. So.
Yeah, so they would have to move the bishop back to like B8.
And then he's getting
Actually, no, they wouldn't have taken on B5 is what I was I would be fine if they took on B5.
Right.
So knight D7 actually was the move I think I was worried about.
Oops. There we go. Okay, so counterattacking against your weak pawn.
Yeah, but even here I'm doing fine. So I could play something like knight A4.
Okay.
Just defending C5.
Okay.
And
obviously this is protected by that bishop.
yeah, and I mean it's just gaining more space in the position, forcing black to react, moving pieces backwards. It's the type of move that I wouldn't think twice about if I were playing somebody who's a couple hundred points lower rated than I am.
Okay.
But against a GM, it's tough to force yourself to play, sort of aggressively. B5 is more of like, I'm coming, I'm moving up the board, kind of move. But it's harder to force yourself to play like that when you're playing against an elite player.
Okay. Well, I mean, your move is still not, strictly speaking, bad. It's just preventative. So.
Yeah.
All right. So rook, get my coordinates mixed up here. Rook E D8, and then knight C4. I like that move.
Finally comes into that square that we were talking about earlier.
Captures, and then rook hopping into. Wow, didn't expect that one.
Yeah, neither did I actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that one took me by surprise, but I wasn't sure about it at the time. I think it was probably a good move. But the drawback, so the benefit of my opponent playing rook d4, and you can go ahead and insert the moves rook takes and then pawn takes.
Yeah.
So the benefit is that white, I have to react. I have to move my pieces backwards. I have to move the knight backwards in this position. The drawback is that the d4 pawn is a little bit weak now. And so it gives me a target. It's definitely he definitely did a lot of calculation before playing rook d4 because it's not the kind of move you can just play and guess about. But the game's going to be pretty double-edged now. It goes from pretty balanced game to now there are some imbalances in the position, and somebody's going to come out of this better, right?
Right. And it looks like you only have one move here, which is knight b1. Otherwise, you're going to hang your knight or something.
Yeah. So if I don't go knight, and I was actually fine with this. I saw this in advance.
Okay.
And I don't know. I felt like I had enough pressure on the d4 pawn to sort of make up for it.
Captures your knight, take, and now you got the bishop pair. Okay.
Knight
e4, holding on.
Only one move here. Bishop e2. And by the way, so this before I took on d4, I also had to do a lot of calculation, right? Because this is these are all very forcing moves. I had to drop my knight back to b1.
Right.
And then after takes, I have to recapture. And then here I have to go to e2 to stop knight f3 check.
Right. Okay.
So during the game, I definitely was spending, that was a critical move to whether or not to play rook takes d4. Definitely was spending a lot of time trying to figure out all the subtleties in the position.
So the double-edged part you're talking about is going to be this pawn, whether or not it's an asset or liability.
Right.
Okay. So rook,
so by the way, I don't think knight takes e4 is playable here.
Okay.
Because of bishop d1. I think. Yeah. Okay, it's
Okay.
playable, but then I take on after they save the knights like knight f6.
Mm-hmm.
I take on d4.
Right, and then you got that pawn out of here.
Yeah.
Open board, bishop pair.
And it feels pretty good for me. Yeah. It's
Okay.
not nothing concrete, but it feels good.
Right.
Um,
So he understood that too and decided just to bring his rook in.
mhm.
Okay. And you went for the counter attack. Now you defend. Okay. So try and think of tactics here. The purpose of kicking the knight first before playing bishop a3
Um.
just felt like kind of aggressive piece. Got to get it out here.
Yeah, there might be a more concrete reason.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like if I can play f4, then f4 has to be sort of the best move, just to force the knight to move away.
Okay.
And since I can get away with it because there's no rook takes b4 in the position instead of knight d7, they could have tried rook takes b4, but then I played bishop a3, or I just take. Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
A lot of tactics in there.
Yep.
So that's a forcing move, force him backward, and then yeah, okay, I like it. Cool. Okay, g5.
And here it's again worth noting that knight takes e4 wasn't playable, because of bishop d1. Yeah.
Cool. 5. So you're laying traps for your opponent.
Yeah, he's not gonna fall for any of them. So here again another series of forcing moves.
Mm-hmm.
E5, knight d5.
Okay.
Bishop d1. Rook has to move away, and then bishop b3. And I remember I analyzed the game with my opponent afterwards.
Yeah.
And he said he thought he might be in trouble here, because the knight on d5 doesn't have anywhere like good to go.
Okay.
So like for example, if my opponent plays like knight e3 here,
E3,
or
okay.
knight c3, yeah, I could play e6, I think.
E6, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, can't. That bishop
takes and then bishop takes. Yeah. So, and again, this goes all the way back to when I played f4. Like I saw this idea coming with bishop b3.
Holy cow. Okay.
And so yeah, I think he just sort of underestimated that move during the game. And so he didn't play knight e3. Instead, he just lets me take the knight on d5.
Okay, so improve somewhere else.
Yeah, he plays takes and then bishop takes d5. And then I take the pawn back. And if we stop and look at this position, it looks pretty good for white.
Yeah, it feels like you're almost winning.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and I felt that way at the time. I remember I was like, should I offer him a draw? Because I felt like I was slightly better. But I think I didn't offer a draw here because I thought I was too much. I thought I was just gonna I thought I was winning. Actually, I thought the position was that good. And so I was starting to get a little bit nervous here. As can happen when you're playing a strong player and you feel like your position's good.
Okay.
Right. And so then his next move sort of took me by surprise. Not because it's like an incredible move. It is a strong move, but I just wasn't really expecting to suddenly be defending. So if you look at the queen side here, the knight and the bishop, they're sort of tied down, which felt like it didn't matter because I can fix that pretty quickly. I can just play bishop b2 and then start to win the d4 pawn.
Right.
If it were white to move here, I think I would be practically winning. I think just bishop b2 or rook d1, and there's nothing black can do to stop me from winning a pawn. So if it were white to move, I'd be doing quite well. The problem is that black has just enough time to make some counterplay. And yeah, if you're watching this, later on YouTube or something, now's a good time to stop your video and try to see if you can come up with a move my opponent played.
Yeah, and try to resist looking at the notation on the right.
Yeah.
Right, there you go.
So he played knight f8.
That's a nice move. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. and then just in one move, the knight's coming to e6 or g6,
Mm-hmm. Do you
and
not have
like, what were
uh-huh.
you gonna say?
Do you not have time to play a prophylactic move here?
Like f5,
Right.
f5 rook e8.
Okay, and then you're hanging this pawn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was thinking maybe like
Yep.
f5, rook e8, bishop back, something takes. Let's say I guess that the bishop takes won't
Oh yeah, so we can show that to the viewers. So
work. Okay.
f5,
Mm-hmm.
rook e8, bishop b2, bishop takes e5,
Mm-hmm.
bishop takes d4. Just barely doesn't work, right? Because they can take with check.
Ouch. So close.
Yeah, so very very close. Yeah.
Oh man, that's a
Um.
shame. Okay.
Yeah. So I think I spent a lot of time here, and just slowly but surely I realized that somehow my opponent has double isolated pawns in the middle of the board, and I'm actually worse. Um, because my queenside pieces are just so far away from
Right.
where the action is with the f4 and e5 pawns, and it's shocking, but like the computer also agrees. It's like -1.
What?
Um, yeah, yeah. It doesn't make any sense. It like breaks all the rules of chess.
Hey, you got beautiful pawn structures. I mean, he has double isolated pawns everywhere.
Yeah,
Actually, he has five
actually,
isolated
literally
pawns.
every single one of his pawns are isolated, right? Um, so I went from feeling like I was winning to feeling like I was slightly worse,
Hmm.
which is a tough transition to go through.
Hmm.
Um, and like after Night of Fate, I sort of just collapse. Like I don't play well for the rest of the game. So to the viewers out there, when like the evaluation shifts drastically, and here the evaluation actually never shifted drastically. It was just sort of my perceived evaluation
Hmm.
shifted. It's important to remain cool, calm, and collected. Keep level head about the position maybe throughout the game. Don't let your emotions get involved. And just make sure to keep playing the best move that you can come up with. I probably thought here for like way too long trying to figure out what to do, what the best continuation was.
Also, we have looks like 7 viewers already. Guys, if you have questions for National Master Bernacki here, feel free to ask in the chat and we'll go ahead and answer them.
Yeah, ask away for sure.
All right. So, actually, I had a question here about Bishop captures knight. So the
Mhm.
GM understood the position, knowing that if you took, it's probably actually better for him. So would taking
Yeah,
a knight.
talking to him afterwards, uh, I think that like at least when I played F4 going back, I sort of mentioned that he like sort of missed the idea of Bishop B3.
Okay.
Like what happens in a couple moves. So after F4 or E5, sorry, not F4.
Okay.
The Bishop B3 idea he had sort of overlooked, but then once it actually like the Bishop D1 idea happened on the board, he came up with the idea of allowing me to take on D5.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Wow.
like he actually didn't see it all the way through though. Like you might expect that like he had seen it all the way back when I played E5, but I think it's not like he got lucky, but he didn't see it all the way, 5 moves ago.
Okay.
Um
So
yeah.
he did what you just offered as the advice. Try to still find the best opportunity in the position.
Exactly, right? So he did a better job of that than I did, right? He was in the same shoes, like, oh wow, I might be worse,
Hmm.
and then came up with a good continuation, which is Knight of Fate, um, and that's just plain experience,
Hmm.
and I also think it's cool because it shows that example shows you that like a 2600 player also makes mistakes.
Hmm.
Um, he didn't calculate perfectly there, but he just kept a level head and kept finding good moves.
Right.
Yeah.
So here you said you were thinking for probably a little too long, and so maybe overthinking this came up with the next decision here.
Yeah, maybe not King F2 explicitly. I think King
Okay.
F2 is fine,
Okay.
activating the king. And King F3 also is probably fine.
Uh-huh.
E takes F6. So I remember at the time when I was calculating this position when I played King F3, I thought after E takes F6, Bishop takes F4. I thought I had Rook G1 here for some reason.
Okay, it looks pretty good, but
Yeah, but then bishop g5,
Oh.
and then h4 doesn't work because of knight takes h4 with check.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Too strong.
Yeah, I thought that I had rook g1 in the position, like sort of like I'm probably getting exhausted, like overthinking everything, and just like made a simple sort of miscalculation.
Gotcha.
It's not like I played rook g1, but like I remember thinking that I had it, and then I was surprised when he played bishop takes f4, and then I quickly realized that rook g1 does not win material.
Gotcha.
Because, for example, rook g1, if they play king f7, then I take on g6, and then get the 2 pieces for the rook.
Right. And that should be at least a draw.
At least a draw. Yeah. I don't think I'm losing that position.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like a silly miscalculation. Again, need to keep a level head though, right?
Right.
And I play the move h3, which is, it's like an extremely wimpy move. I don't know how else to put it, right? It's not an active move at all. Something like bishop b2 or rook d1, trying to put pressure on the central pawns, was absolutely necessary. Like I can't be trying to save my pawns. A lot of times in the end game, when you start playing too passively, that's when things start to turn. Like you have to keep your pieces active. And my bishop and knight actually never get back into the game, like for the rest of the game.
Oh no.
So h3 is the real turning point.
Okay.
Just objectively, from here on out, it's not good. I had to do something more active than that.
Okay. So
yeah,
that's kind of hard. How is the time situation here?
Low on time.
Okay.
But we get more an hour and move 40.
Okay.
So I'm low on time, but I'm getting time soon.
And there's your move 40 with rook d1. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so he solidifies his position, keeps pressure, and oh man, I don't even know what you're supposed to do with these guys.
Yeah.
It seems like you have a
simple,
bishop back
in. But it's a little bit too late, and like by the time I reach move 40, it's already pretty much lost. So bishop b2 is what I played, but then 95 check. And an interesting note here is that king e2 or king g2 both lose to rook a2.
You have to move forward or stay up.
I have to go there. Yeah.
Okay. Then
I'm almost getting like mated.
Yeah. These guys
so he plays. Yeah, they're very sad, right?
Oh man.
Yeah.
And then at his level, he could just kind of slowly clean up the position.
Yeah, I resigned because it just hopeless.
Okay.
And I guess I'm technically only down a pawn, but it's really bad.
Right.
Yeah, my pieces just are stuck over there, right? I needed that bishop to win the pawn on d4, so that all goes back to h3. Where I just am wasting time, like playing too defensively.
Right. Yeah, this could have been a very different game here. After maybe bishop here now, then you would have immediate pressure. No,
right. Yeah, I mean, like, either way, I mean, it's probably I'm still worse, right? But, like, either way, h3 is just a wasted tempo. Like,
okay.
My opponent's not playing bishop takes h2 pretty much ever, so there's no reason to play h3.
Gotcha.
Okay,
makes a lot of sense. So,
and I remember when I was doing the post-game analysis with my opponent, he said that like he was still not exactly sure if he was winning until I played h3. Then he was pretty sure that he was winning. Yeah.
Okay, he did nothing here. That means I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, I was looking at all these moves, and then you played h3, so I was pretty sure that I was winning after that
one. So the main points here were the bishop b3, which was kind of a shock move, but you found a nice maneuver to get all your pieces all out. So
yeah. So actually, in hindsight, bishop b3 like might have been a mistake. Because it allowed like my knight to get into the game with tempo. but I mean, pretty much like a break-even transaction because black gained a tempo on my rook as well.
Right.
But it wasn't as bad as it looked because of that maneuver with the rook.
I think also early about near A to D1 instead of D1. That could have been very different with this push.
Yep, definitely.
When
Yeah, I
okay.
think what was going through my head was that I thought I wanted to play E4.
Uh-huh.
So I thought maybe I wanted my rook on E1 to defend the pawn.
Gotcha.
But that's just it's very flawed thinking in retrospect.
Okay. Well, so this was round 3, correct? Of the tournament? This must have definitely warmed you up and given you some good confidence for the next round too. Having
Yeah.
such a strong position.
So in terms of quality of play, this was one of my best tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Just like throughout, I thought I played really well. I got 6.5 out of 9, which like was, I don't know, tied for 20th place or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. But like none of my results were incredible. I just thought that my games, like I played very well. So like for example, like this game, I lost obviously, so the result's not good. But I thought the quality of play by me throughout was like pretty good. Felt like we were trading jabs a little bit in the middle game. But you can't be results oriented all the time. Just because I lost the game doesn't mean it was a bad result.
Right.
Definitely some
Against a
stuff to
stronger
learn
player.
from.
Who took the time afterward to talk through the game with you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was cool. Yeah. So to viewers out there, the biggest like psychological lesson to take away from this game would be that like if there's a big shift in evaluation, make sure you keep a level head. So my opponent, right, did a good job of that when he thought that maybe his position was worse than he thought.
Mm-hmm.
He found the best continuation with that knight f8 move, and then my reaction to the knight f8 move was, oh no, and I sort of freaked out and didn't keep a cool head,
Right.
and continue finding the best moves. Like the game ends shockingly quickly after knight f8, right?
Yeah, I was surprised at how quickly the position could just fall apart.
Yeah, and I mean it's a result of like
considering how solid this all looks.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I wonder if yeah, it's actually very interesting. You look at the position, you think white's better, but it's hard to find a good plan. Huh.
Yeah. Like bishop b2, for example, just knight e6.
Right.
Uh-huh.
But then again, that might have been the best practical try, maybe. Because it wouldn't be as well. I don't know. What would be the best practical try to keep playing on here?
I think king f2 and king f3 are okay.
Right. Okay. So from here, like, would there be at any point where you know you need to pitch a pawn for activity?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Maybe I could play like could have played bishop b2 the move before, or maybe the move before that. I'm not exactly sure where the moment was that I know that h3 was not good. But I think up until then it was still like holdable. So takes f6 might also be fine. Takes bishop takes. It's just here.
Yeah.
I need to come up with something better than that. So like rook d1. Yeah, rook d1.
Okay. Definitely. Yeah, your opponent definitely kept a level head because after f4, I would be kind of like scared from here. Like, uh-oh, I'm getting pushed away.
Yep.
Oh man.
And this is what we talked about so last time where although those pawns look intimidating, right, they also are weaker.
Right.
The further they get up the board, the more accessible they are for black to attack.
Correct.
So that's always a trade-off.
Especially in the end game where the queen's a trade-off.
Yep.
Actually, I had that in a lesson a couple days ago with a student of mine, and he had the same similar position, which was like, okay, it's end game, your opponent's pawns are really up the board, but they really can't do anything with it. Just get activity, go after the pawns and their targets. And then checked with the computer, it's like, oh my goodness, Mark was right.
Yeah,
But so
yeah.
yeah, guys, if you are interested in getting lessons here from National Master Mark Biernacki, go ahead and send him an email at. Go for it.
MW
Hmm.
Biernacki Biernacki at gmail.com.
Hey,
Yeah, just go ahead and send me an email. And yeah, taking students for online lessons through Skype. Um, Thank you. I want to give a shout out to Brian also. Brian was my chess coach from around the age of 13 to 18, 12 to 18. I'm not sure exactly
gotcha. When you were
when it
young.
was. But he's remained like helpful in my chess training throughout my life.
Hmm.
So big shout out to Brian. Um, and yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, for raising a really strong player here. Cool. Don't really have too much more to say on that, but yeah, thank you again so much for coming for a second interview here. Hopefully, we can have you again in the future with some more games on your tournaments, such as like mindsets and so on. Uh,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, sounds good.
like you said,
Thanks, man.
biggest takeaway is keep a level head no matter what the position is. If you're winning, losing, doesn't matter.
Yeah, and additionally, play the same way no matter who your opponent is. I did okay at that this game, but there's still a few areas where I
Right.
would have played a little bit more aggressively had I been playing a weaker player.
Like this one here
Yeah.
with B5, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yep.
Awesome. All right, guys.
Yep.
Well, we'll